Open the podcast bay doors, Hal.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 120 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits, but I found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. By the time the next episode is out, it will be June, so it's time for the shout out to my patrons for the month of May. Justin Bailey, Lily Breen, Jesse Clark, Ricky Garvin, Rob Garrison, Forrest Woodward, Aaron Borst, Lyndon Onstead, Julio Herrera, Matthew Saint, and Utuk Zul. I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. Remember, it's just $1 per month to join in and get this monthly shoutout, as well as full scripts and audio outtakes. Now, on to the show. This part of my conversation with John Mulhall was separate enough from our talk about episode 6 in particular, but I did want to let everyone hear it, not just patrons who got the full unedited audio, as we go over our rankings of all the Disney Plus Marvel shows so far, as well as answer a question from a listener about the Moon Knight show in general. Let's dive into our conversation with our overall positive feelings on the show, despite our multiple issues with the show's finale. We've both been kind of negative on this episode, but I think we're both overall positive on the show would love to get more of it. We want to see more Moon Knight.
Yeah, I can't say enough about the talent involved in front of the camera. I do feel like, for all my criticisms of the show being sloppy, it's a character that I really like and I would like to see more of. And I would like to see more of the Layla character, the Scarlet Scarab character as well.
Mm-hmm.
They've shown that they're very willing to spin off lesser known characters. Echo is getting a show. That's not somebody who was hugely popular from my understanding in the comics, but here I think that Marvel's willing to make those swings. And I would love to see Moon Knight come back. I would love to see Layla. And I think there's more story to tell for sure.
Most definitely. The fact that we don't see Jake in person until these last few seconds shows just how much more could be told in the interaction between the aspects of his personality.
Yeah. You promised to come back and revisit a rating or a ranking. What is your thought on this show and where it falls?
Well, let's see. Let me get a quick list here. So we've had WandaVision, Loki,
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Thank you.
What If?
Oh, okay. Hawkeye, and now Moon Knight. So, I think they started off with the strongest show. I think WandaVision was the best one so far.
We are in agreement on that. It's also at the top of my list.
I would put Loki next.
Also in agreement.
Then I've got 3 that are right there. I think probably Hawkeye.
In agreement.
This
is pretty funny, actually.
Then Moon Knight.
Same.
Then What If, and Falcon and Winter Soldier at the bottom.
Those are the only ones that I'm different with you on. Is the bottom
okay.
2. I put What If last. Even though I really enjoyed the show, there were some episodes that I really disliked. And overall, it's just such a disjointed narrative that and as an anthology for the most part, to me, it was a little take it or leave it. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I feel like had more character development. But aside from that, our lists are really in sync.
Yeah.
So with the caveat that may change tomorrow. And as I go forward thinking more about Moon Knight, I may rethink its place on the list too.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, my opinions kind of fluctuate depending on, maybe what I've seen most recently or what's going on with me personally.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't think Loki is the strongest show, but it has the most rewatchability and it sticks in my mind the most.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the production values were pretty rinky dink on that show. It felt, like we were filming on stages more than most, but yet it still put it at, second to the top. And I honestly think Wanda would have been a home run had they not had to make some COVID compromises. That show really lives still in my mind. The rest, I don't find myself revisiting that much.
Yeah. Maybe as a prequel to when Captain America 4 comes out, but I don't see myself ever watching Falcon and Winter Soldier again just to watch the show.
I get it. I think that one definitely suffered the most from COVID.
Either that one or WandaVision.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's still on top shows exactly how good it was.
I think that WandaVision was able to take those hits with less impact because Wanda was largely shot on sets by virtue of its premise, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to be globetrotting. And I feel like where it started off very strong in that regard, and first episode, that sequence with Falcon is amazing, or in the helicopters, the canyons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like it becomes so small after that. Episode by episode, it gets smaller and smaller. And I can't help but think that was a result of rewriting and re-editing because of the COVID. But, it's very interesting that our lists are very similar. And I'd like to revisit with you at some point and see where Moon Knight falls once we've had some time and distance.
Yeah, that'd be fun. If we get a season 2 or a movie or something, maybe we can come back together for...
Sounds very good. It's been a great ride, man. Thanks for including me. I apologize for kind of being the naysayer, but I've enjoyed our conversations.
Yeah, me too. Before we wrap things up, we got a question from Joel, frequent listener, and was also the co-host with me for the WandaVision episodes.
Yes.
And so he wrote in and he asks, it's a little long here, but he says, how do you see this story fitting into the MCU as a whole? I know that comics in general are known to have titles with their own little bubbles that don't impact each other, but Feige has been super careful up until now to involve everything with everything else in some way, and this one just kind of feels standalone, especially with Oscar Isaac not contracted to come back. I guess what I'm asking is, as fun and interesting as the series was, why make it? Why put it out now?
Yeah, you sent this to me, and ironically, within an hour of you sending this to me, my good friend who had been waiting to binge the show texted me and said, I'm failing to understand the plan that they have going forward. I don't see how things are connecting to each other. And I think my feeling is that they are at a place where they're feeling more flexibility not to have things always connect to each other.
Agreed.
And I don't know if that's the best plan, but I think my feeling is, and I think I feel this way after seeing Doctor Strange as well. And I know you haven't seen it, so I won't go into any sort of spoilers on that, but I walked out of that one kind of going, in phase one, we really saw like, all right, we're going to introduce all these characters and then we're going to bring them together in a movie, because that was something that had never been done before. It was a very ambitious experiment. And now 4 phases in, I think Feige is realizing not everything can be a pathway to some bigger thing, that if they're going to be a studio that has 2 to 4 television projects a year and 2 to 3 movie projects a year, that they're going to have to be more diverse, and those things are going to have to come in and out of each other more naturally, more like comics were and are. I think that there's going forward on a project like Moon Knight feels frustrating for those of us who loved the interconnectivity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that, it all's connected and it's all going to lead somewhere. And maybe we're going to start seeing more shows like this that are just little he uses the term bubble, and I think his question was very well phrased. It's, what is the point? And we were used to everything having a point. And I think maybe we need to look at this as being an expansion of the biggest, movie studio around. This is the 800-pound gorilla, and they're realizing everything is not going to be able to go A to B to C to D, and they're just going to have to allow for creative, interesting projects where filmmakers come in and infuse their personality. And if that thing goes one season or two, or is a movie, or is connected to something else or not connected, I think we're going to see smaller connections happen where people come in and out of each other's shows, but the big stuff is going to be reserved, for, if the next big event is Secret Wars or whatever it is, it's going to bring things together at that point. But up until then, I think we're going to see independent stories told by independent filmmakers, and with the nuggets of story building thrown in, but nothing as overt as we were used to in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed dead on nearly exactly what I would say. So I don't have a lot to add, except that I think that the next big event will actually be Young Avengers rather than Secret Wars.
Do you think that'll be a big event, or will that be a small big event?
I think it will be the next Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And the Avengers movies have been reasonably big events for the most part. Maybe Age of Ultron is the only exception.
Yeah.
But even that led into Civil War and led in, it was definitely connected and an event. So I think the next big event will be Young Avengers. I think getting that new team together will be the next big thing. And Moon Knight, unlike some of the other projects that have come up, doesn't have any natural connection to that.
Yeah.
And so it's fine for it to be on its own. I read that at some point they had thoughts of bringing in the Eternals for an appearance of some sort in Moon Knight, but that they decided against it for a number of reasons.
Yeah, that was probably the right call.
I agree, even though I really love the Eternals movie and am looking forward to seeing them interact with others in the Marvel Universe, but I don't think that this was necessarily the right show for them to next show up in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's good that we're getting more projects that are less connected to an overarching story, that do obviously take place in the same universe. We do get the books on Mark's table had references to Wakanda and Asgard.
Right.
And so, we do get those, the bus with the Global Repatriation Council, all those sorts of things. We get those little notes that say, yes, you're still in the Marvel Universe, and anyone from the Marvel Universe can show up. If there's a story that we want to tell later that Moon Knight needs to meet Daredevil, we can do that. But we don't have to.
Right.
That is not the reason for the show. The reason for the show is to tell the story of this man suffering dissociative identity disorder and doing it in a fantastical way that involves superpowers and gods and all of that sort of thing, but still is a very human story at the same time. And yes, especially we who have been or are currently comic book fans love the interactions, love the Easter eggs, love the crossovers, but they're not the reason.
Right.
That's not why the shows exist. If all we were doing was having this show be a teaser for the next show, be a teaser for the next show, be a teaser for the big movie, if that's all they were doing, it would burn out quickly, and we would have that superhero fatigue that everyone has been predicting for years and years and years now. Right. But the fact that they are using the superhero genre to tell individual stories and to cross over into other different genres like psychological thriller or supernatural horror.
Well, and that's what I was just, I was saying to you, I think before we started recording, that Doctor Strange is a Sam Raimi film, and it's a horror film, and it has so much of his identity on it. And I'm sure Love and Thunder will have Taika Waititi written all over it. And we know that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the holiday special are going to be James Gunn through and through. And I think that they're, I think that we're into this space now where they're okay. Yeah. If we can tie these things together, great. But otherwise, let's just let good, interesting people tell good, interesting stories. And, I think that that's necessary, because if it starts to feel, I think it did start to feel a little bit like, you have to check out the next episode of the big screen Marvel soap opera, like that, if you don't see it, then you're going to be left in the dust. And I think that you get to a certain point and you talk about superhero fatigue, that's going to be very real, where people are like, I don't have time to see 96 projects. So I've got to be able to walk into something and with the bare minimum of knowledge and still enjoy that thing unto itself.
Right. Yeah. But if you want to get all of the background knowledge, feel free to ask me any questions here on Welcome to Geektown.
You are so good at making those transitions. Well, again, thank you for including me on this journey, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. Do you want to get in any plugs or anything, let people know? I've mentioned your website every episode, but if people want to follow you anywhere or anything like that, how would people reach out to you?
The website is great. All my links are on there. I'm pretty active on Facebook, but less so on Twitter and whatnot. I've got a couple of projects in the work coming out, and I'm excited about those. I just encourage people, if they're interested in the kind of shows that we've been looking at, the kind of projects that that you talk about on this podcast, then maybe have them, they might be interested in some of this stuff that I've done, because it's definitely comics have influenced my sensibility and have been part of my DNA for a long time. So, if you're a reader, come check out my stuff.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you. Be sure to check out John's work and drop him a line to let him know you enjoyed his time on the show as much as I did. One last bit of news before we wrap things up. We're going back to the usual one episode every other week, and as I'm starting a new job with a different schedule, I may be moving new episode day to Friday evening or possibly even sometime over the weekend rather than Thursday evening. I haven't decided 100% on that, as I haven't actually started the job, but it's likely to fit my schedule better and give me the time I need to give you the highest quality product I can. In the meantime, keep feeding me any questions you'd like answered for future episodes, or just let me know what you think of the show in general. Please send any and all of those via email to welcometogeektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, welcome to, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click the Submit a Question link if you'd prefer to remain anonymous. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcometogeektown or Twitter @geektownpodcast. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, come join the Patreon at patreon.com/welcometogeektown for just $1 per month to get access to full scripts of the shows, audio outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show so we can all tell them,
Welcome to Geektown, population, us.
Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Centeno. All other sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.